What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to the U.S.S. Enterprise A refit from Star Trek Beyond. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me in supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And today we're going to be doing a tour of the Enterprise A. Now, you're going to notice that there's some things that look different between the one from the movie and what I have here. Let's just, dive right into this thing, because I've never really actually had a chance to talk about this build. I had done a music video tour of it, and I've taken that stuff down and wanted to have a chance to actually redo this. So basically what I did with this build was I took the Enterprise A that was seen in Star Trek Beyond, and I fused it with the original Constitution class refit. I don't know, there are just things about this build, well, with the Constitution class refit from the Kelvin timeline. One of my gripes with it is that I feel like they referenced the TOS Enterprise instead of, or the TOS Constitution class, the original, instead of the refit. And there were design cues for me that were missing, like with the engines and pylons, for example. The engines still felt very much like an older ship, even on the refit, and the pylons didn't necessarily have the angling that I thought that they should have. And just little tiny minor things like with the neck and the deflector dish area. But overall, I think it's a great variation for how the Enterprise A should look, in my opinion. I think it really fits, like when I built this refit, I had actually used the Vengeance as a slight reference. So you'll notice with the very front of my engines that they have that cut inward, this part right here. It's just like the Vengeance. And I did that on purpose because I wanted it to be like that next level of advancement. And I've got frogs rolling around on top of my ship. How about that? But at the same time, I think it still also has that old school feel that the engines had on the refit, where they were modern and classic at the same time. I don't know. To me, this just screams Enterprise A way more so than the one from Star Trek Beyond. I think that's the bottom line here. This was actually the first Constitution class I had ever worked on, not counting my 2009 Enterprise, but a lot of people might not know this, but my 2009 Enterprise and this one are actually one and the same. I refitted it and rebuilt it. And believe it or not, this ship is how I learned how to build starships on Minecraft. Just trial and error, rebuilding over and over and over until I got the process down where I was happy with it. Some of the things on here that are just really cool. I'm not even doing some of the things on my modern builds that I was trying out on this ship. Like with the hull detailing here, you can see with the white concrete blocks, I was toying with the idea of trying to make it work and making it subtle. I mean, this is something that I could even end up doing on my Enterprise D. But just even having the hull panels themselves in the gray broken up, it has a very old school feel about it. That's also another reason why you're not going to see it like on a Galaxy class, like the way I have the paneling broken up between the quartz and the gray concrete. It just it has more of an old school feel to it. But man, I'm pretty happy with how this ship turned out, just everything about it. One of my key favorite areas on this ship, believe it or not, is actually the impulse engines and the shuttle bay. Those were two areas that they weren't super well. The impulse engines weren't hard to do. It just kind of took me a little bit to fall on something that I was super happy with. And I ended up using the impulse engines more closely to a reference of how they were on the original Constitution class refit from the Shatner movies. The shuttle bay area now, that was pretty difficult to do. It took me a while to get the blending right on this, and it took a combination of half slabs, as well as full concrete blocks before I was able to get this pattern down to something that I was really content with. But all things considered, beautiful build. Very, very happy with how this thing turned out. We're going to be hopping on the inside of our ship here. Now I've got 2 points of entrance here. We've got our, well actually 3. We've got the airlock on our neck, the airlock on the lower hull, and then our shuttle bay. I think let's start with the rear and work our way up. So we're going to go in through the shuttle bay. Now I built out the shuttle bay exit to where I could even delete this doorway if I wanted to. It would basically be everything inside this dark gray outline here. So all the blocks in here, I can get rid of those, and then I can just have my shuttle bay doors opened. But I kind of like them closed. It looks a little bit better. Now, one of the things you are going to notice is that the grating down here, when I originally put it here, it wasn't on fire. I was thinking about redoing it for the purpose of this tour, but I ultimately decided that I'm just going to leave it the way it is. This is how the ship looked when I did my original video, so I kind of wanted to represent that. But very, very cool shuttle bay area. I took a lot of cues from how the shuttle bay looked from the concept art that I can find for the 2009 Enterprise. And then also, I think Star Trek the video game actually had areas of the shuttle bay where I was able to use that. And you can see that we've got 2 decks for the shuttle bay. And there's even cargo doors down here that we can drop our cargo for a cargo area. And of course, I always want to stick to those moments in Minecraft. You can see up there, we've got the area where Scotty would be up there taking care of business, making sure that everything's going right, where the shuttle bay is coming in. And that's why I always say you want to make sure that you add in those moments on your build so people have a point of reference that they can connect to your build, to either the shows or the movies. You see, of course, we've got our automatic doors. The refit has them pretty much going all throughout the ship. There's a couple of areas that it doesn't, but pretty much everywhere. So we've got our transition corridor here, which would take us from our shuttle bay to engineering, but we're going to go down first before we make our way up there. So directly below our shuttle bay, this would technically be our cargo areas. You can come over here. We've got plenty of cargo space on both the right as well as the left. And I didn't go off of any blueprints or anything. I just built something that I thought looked cool. Because at the end of the day, I think you gotta have fun when you're playing Minecraft, and I enjoy playing this game because, I mean, it takes my mind off of stuff that's going on in life, and you can just kind of focus on what you're working on. And I like how this area came out. Now, if I had rebuilt this ship today, this would look completely different. The whole ship would look completely different. I think this ship just really gave me a lot of ideas on stuff that I can do going forward. Because like I said, I learned how to build off this ship. But this would be kind of like an area where when we were up in the shuttle bay, you can drop cargo down here, and you'd be able to pick it up and then bring it down to the storage. Now we're going to make our way over to the terrarium. And I loosely use references of a model of the terrarium that I can find for the Constitution refit. I didn't do anything exact, and mine's obviously a lot smaller than how it looked, but I mean, the main gust of it is here. We've got a lake, we've got wildlife rolling through here. It's supposed to make you feel like you're on Earth, even though we're in space. Doesn't look like a bad area. It looks pretty cool. We got our fish down there. That one's just doing breakdance and spinning. All right. So now let's go back up to the main deck, and I think we'll go up to shuttle bay control room. You can see from both the left side and the right we can access our shuttlecraft from the upper deck. Now if we really wanted to, we could even go upstairs here, which would bring us into engineering. But we'll pop into that a little bit later, but I wanted to showcase that area where you can go both ways, where you can go into engineering, or you can transition downward right into the shuttle bay. Now for engineering, I loosely took references from the 2009 Enterprise and also the screenshots that were shown into Star Trek Into Darkness. We see we've got our water piping going along the ship. I think I just made this a little bit more streamlined where I didn't have stuff going all over the place and just kind of on the sides. I want to try to make it look a little bit more refined with the Enterprise A, but still having this stuff here because we're in the Kelvin timeline. You can see we've got our 2 airlocks where we can get in and out of the ship from our lower hull. That brings us right into engineering. And then we've got our turbo lift, which I love it because this was the build where I figured out how to facade out my turbo lift and try to make it look as much as I could how it looked on the show. So we've got our warp core. And this is just a smaller version of how it looked in Star Trek Into Darkness. And it looks different than how it looked in the movie. It was more spherical. I just kind of transitioned it backwards where it would carry over into the deflector control room. It just made a little bit more sense to me. And then on the sides, I just added paneling just to try to blend the room in together. You know? And it's the same thing on the left and the right. So now let's go up a deck. So one of the things I wanted to do with this build, I wanted to kind of mix the Enterprises from the original Shatner movies with also the Kelvin timeline. Now, one of the reasons I did this was to just fill in the gaps and have the most fully formed ship that I could. So we had our engineering area downstairs that you would have seen in like Star Trek Into Darkness. But this area, this deck is a little bit closer to how it would have looked in the Shatner movies. This is an area where we can actually work on the warp core itself. And this, we have controls going all the way back. And then if we went all the way down, this would take us back into the shuttle bay control room. And again, you know, if I had made this today, my interior would be completely different. This was a learning process and also a hodgepodge of just updating stuff as I went with the build. So we're gonna go all the way up. We're gonna pass the neck because there's honestly not really much to see in the neck, and we're on deck 6 on the saucer section. So we've got our main hub. We've got our port outer saucer corridor going to the left, and then to the right we've got our starboard quarter outer saucer corridor. And this is just kind of like a main hub. This brings us to the forward standard main corridor. This would bring us up to the bridge, also astrometrics and the captain's wheel. And then this would bring us to the medical bay. We're going to make our way over there, but we're going to be starting our way with the outer circular corridor. This was my first, this is where I got this set for my template for my circular corridors off of this build. If you look at the Enterprise D, the Cerritos, well, not the Cerritos. The Cerritos has different corridors. But the interiors that I've done for my other ships, they all have this same pattern more or less. And this is the build that I got it from. So right now we're in the middle access point on the right side of the ship. We're going to go into crew quarters. And didn't do anything crazy. We've just got bunks set up and a door with a little bit of privacy. It's the same setup in every single bunk. And then down here, this is more of like a general cadet area, so you'd have even less privacy. And then we've got our restrooms to the right, and then to the left, we've got our showers. Okay. So let's keep on rolling. We're going to make our way to the nose of the saucer. Let's check out the bowling alley. This was on the animated series of Star Trek, and I just wanted to have something that looked cool and kind of connect back to that era. And again, you know, we're adding in stuff that people can connect to, you know. And didn't do anything super fancy, you know, just supposed to be a couple of lane bowling alley and just call it a day. And we've got our Admiral's quarters, so we're at the very nose of the ship. Down here we've got our shower, entertainment area for like a view screen, and then our living room seating area, and then of course our main bedroom. It's crazy seeing this stuff because this build is several years old at this point. It's been a while since I've actually walked through it. Now we're going to make our way over to the security area, and I referenced this from Star Trek Into Darkness. Tried to build it as close as I could at the time. If I built this again today, I don't know if I would have done it the same way. I probably would have used a couple of different blocks and maybe a different color scheme. I don't know. At least on the sides, maybe. I think I added in the gray here on the sides because I was wanting to make it, just to give it a little bit more color, make it not as white. Doesn't look terrible. We've got our pool area. For some reason my doorway isn't opening on that side. It is on this side though. You can tell this is an old save. So this is prior to even having this room built out. Because it's crazy, this save file, this is the most recent save I was able to get on Xbox. Because on this save, the Enterprise D, the Cerritos, the Borg Cube, and the Disco era Enterprise are gone. So that's crazy. I thought that this save would have everything on it, but even I think so far the only thing that was missing was the pool itself. So we've got general mess, and then the kitchen. And this was kind of cool. Behind the kitchen I actually had like herbology. And I kind of had the idea this would be somewhere where you could like teleport in livestock or something. And then we've got more area back here for growing stuff. And then a cargo room in the back. And I don't think I'm going to do every room on the ship. So now what we're going to do, we're going to transition. This is going to be our main forward corridor. We're going to take this going forward. This is my janky attempt at an inner circular corridor. This is why I say that sometimes you're almost better off just starting your build from scratch if you're making significant changes to the interior, because the way that I learned building on this ship, I pretty much did it the hardest way possible, not even realizing that I did it. It was really challenging to get all of this set up to the way it is now, because like I said, I refitted this build for my 2009 Enterprise, and I probably just should have rebuilt it. But anyway, now we're in our transporter room. This is still like, I love how this transporter room came out. I think even all the ones that I've done recently don't quite stand up to this one. It just looks fantastic. Love how this came out. Still haven't seen another transporter room that looks as good as this one. I love it. So now we're going to go back and we're going to go continuing to the back point of our main corridor, which will bring us back to the hub. Now we're briefly going to check out the medical area, and I referenced this from Star Trek the video game, but I could have been a little bit more accurate. Like I said, with this build I really learned how to do interior as well as the exterior, so there's a lot of stuff here that I would have done differently. But all things considered, it doesn't look terrible. So let's go down our corridor that will take us up to the bridge. You can see I've sodded out a corridor going up to the main turbo lift. This is just a dead doorway, it doesn't open, but I mean it adds in that extra flair. At some point I'm going to have to come through here and replace the grating with like a gray blocks. But again, this is how the ship looked before. That grating just wasn't on fire when I had placed it there originally. So now we're in the very bottom of the ship. This is probably one of the oldest areas on the ship that wasn't necessarily reconverted several times. This is the captain's wheel room. To give you an idea of how old this build is, going all the way back to the original 2009 Enterprise, I started working on it November 7th of 2012, and I think I didn't get to this point until 2015, so just trial and error rebuilding this thing over and over and over again until I was happy with it. Probably maybe 5 or 6 attempts, just changing things. All right. I've got a kitty roaming through my deck here. You'd say there's some of this I still haven't flushed out. If I would have been able to save the most recent save file on here, all that stuff was done, but I'm going back to before that was completed. So we've got our astrometrics area, which is a little nod to Star Trek Generations, also Star Trek Voyager. Astrometrics was pretty important in that show also. Let's take this going all the way up. So now we're up in the bridge. And again, this bridge, the template that I use when I'm building my ships out for the bridge, this is how I came up with getting that reference for the main template to do that. And it's also the reason why I don't usually stray too far away from it, because it's just trial and error. All the other designs that I've come up with in the past, this is the best template that I've been able to come up with. Now, with that being said, there are going to be scenarios where we make significant changes to it. Like with the Galaxy class, for example, when you look at the bridge on my Enterprise D as opposed to the Enterprise A, you're probably going to see similarities in the cut line. But as far as the layout of the ship, of the bridge itself and the size, two very different things. We've even got our switches here on the left and right side where they can go to warp. Now, the one thing that I didn't carry over with some of my newer builds was having the railing going here. I just kind of felt like it was in the way. And I know that there's mods that you can get, and I've had people ask me like, hey, why don't you add mods on here? And it's like, look, you gotta understand, like, it's not that I don't know how to use mods and I can't install them. Granted, I don't really mess with mods. When I was younger, I used to use mods all the time. I just stopped because, especially with Minecraft, I enjoy the challenge of building this thing out with the basics of what comes with the game. Not downing anybody that does use the mods. If you do, more power to you. But for me, that's just kind of where I'm at on it. I don't really like to use it. And also, I think a good portion of my people that watch my content, they're playing on Xbox, they're playing on their tablets. They may not, most of them aren't using the mods either. So I mean, that's just kind of the two main reasons why I don't mess with it. And on top of that, like, I look at all the people that are doing content for Minecraft, they're all using mods, you know, so believe it or not, I don't want to be like anybody. I'm just trying to do my own thing over here and doing what I think works best for the builds and the way that I enjoy doing them. So it just kind of works out this way for me, you know. But anyway, this is my Enterprise A refit. I love how this thing came out. Like at some point, I am going to be rebuilding this because those of you that are on my Discord know that I have the Enterprise A 1.1 where I redesigned this ship actually. And I had a 3D model commission built for it, and I actually had that model printed out. So eventually, once we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to be doing a tutorial for it. And it is more or less the same as this ship. I mean, there are some subtle changes, but those of you that have been wanting a tutorial for this, you'll be getting it. And that's kind of everything I have to talk about with the Enterprise A. Really, really enjoyed this build. Such a fun experience doing it. But there's a ton of things that I would have done differently. As far as building it out and also the learning process to get here. I love how this thing turned out. But I do think that's going to do it for me today. Just wanted to do a tour video of this thing, actually giving commentary and talking about it, because again, never really had a chance to discuss this with the community. So, you know, let me know what you guys think in the comments section if you enjoyed this episode. Definitely love hearing from everybody. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, letting me know that you guys enjoyed this content. I can't thank you guys enough for that. If you have any questions regarding this tour episode or anything that you want to see, be sure to drop a comment or join the Discord. Definitely love to hear from everybody. But I think that's going to do it for me today. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode, and I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I'll catch you in the next episode. And of course, what did you make in Minecraft today? Let me know in the comments section.